Good evening. It is 5 p.m. and I am calling the Public Safety Committee meeting of Monday, April 20th, 2026 to order. I'm Rob Watton, Chair, and as part of our roll call, we have joining us council members Catherine Cotton and Brian Holloway, as well as Rebecca Solom, and our police chief, interim Baresi, and Chief Bailey. And good evening, Mayor Mayhew.
Good evening.
And with that, the first item of business is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Councilmember Holloway, second by Councilmember Cotton. Is there any discussion or corrections on it? Hearing none, we will accept the agenda as presented. Next, we move on to public comments. I do not see anyone here in the council chambers. However, if you have comments, please send those to the city clerk or to one of us on the committee. And we will make sure that those are acknowledged. And with that, we have none that I'm aware of. So we will close public comments and move on to the minutes. Minutes dated 2 weeks from today, which would be
There aren't minutes for.
There are no minutes.
today.
Okay, very well. We will skip the minutes and approve those at our next meeting. And that moves us right along to agenda bill. First one is AB 26-011, King County Emergency Medical Services, BLS, which stands for Basic Life Support Contract. And who would like to speak on that? Oh, Chief Bailey. Nice try there.
Yes. Good evening. So this is, like I spoke at the last Public Safety Committee meeting, this is the agenda bill that goes along with the signing of the BLS contract for the next 5 years. As a reminder, this is a reimbursable contract. There's no money going out, but it's what we need to sign to be able to receive the funds from the EMS levy that King County EMS passes every 5 years. And it's used to help support, in the fire department, we use the money for training, for reviewing our calls, for equipment that we purchase, as well as some of it's used as a reimbursement for salary for the firefighters. This is a contract that's good for 5 years. Each year, the amount that we get will go up slightly based on inflation and how they put it. But we're set to receive, as it is in the agenda bill, we're set to receive up to 300,000, just a little over 300,000 in funds. More than likely, based on our past usage of this money, will probably be closer around the 230, 240 range. But that's the amount that we're going to be asking for reimbursement as we do different things throughout the year. This year, some of the things we have planned is with the core services money, we're going to hopefully purchase the third AED. We might have to wait till next year just to build up another $7,000 or $8,000 for that. It's coming in a little bit higher than I thought, but we'll see how the budget ends up at the end of the year. That's one thing that we're planning on using the funds for. And then the rest of the money, goes back to the MIH, which is, we use, as a reminder, we use Redmond Fire to provide our MIH service, which is where they go out and do some of the follow-up with calls.
MIH?
Mobile Integrated Health.
There you go.
It's where they have a caseworker that goes out with a paramedic and they reach out to provide services to residents through referrals from the firefighters on scene. It was designed to help try to cut down on those high usage type 911 calls, but it's also just used for, like I said, if maybe there's a new illness in a home, maybe there's a husband and wife, maybe say for example, the wife has gotten sicker, maybe they need some referrals for caregivers, in-home care, things like that. The MIH program can help set them up with some of those services. So it's kind of a, for those lower calls so they don't have to keep calling 911. That's one of the things that we use the money for. Again, the money, you can see on the agenda bill that the budget, it's like I said, it's not going to cost any money from the city. It's more just to sign this. The one thing that we do have to provide from this, I mentioned last time too, is we do have to purchase some PPE, some personal protective equipment that came out of the pandemic. We need to make sure part of the contract is they say we have to have 6 months supply of PPE for the firefighters so that we don't run into the problems we did last time if there is another pandemic trying to get supplies. So that's the one thing we are going to need from this, but the funds from it's a minimal cost and we'll be able to use some of the funds from the levy to pay for that. We just have to keep it on stock at the station.
Okay. So, Councilmember Cotton.
One thing I wasn't sure of if it fits into the category, can any of the funds be used for community training? Like, let's say the CERT class. The fire department's putting on training for the community. And is that something?
Not specifically. There's not anything the MIH money would probably be kind of the closest that could be used for that, but that's pretty specific as to what it can be used for.
Okay.
They have it tied pretty much to that. So there's nothing specific that we could use for training for the public other than, by receiving the 200 and something $1,000 that we get for the reimbursement of the salary that offsets. So we could use kind of some money on some other stuff, but there's nothing that's tied. This grant doesn't tie, I guess it's not a grant, it's a contract, but it doesn't tie anything specifically to training for the public.
Okay, thanks.
Chief, could you also kind of expand on the AED equipment? Because it's different today than what it used to be.
Well, yeah, so we had, if you remember last year, we did a budget amendment last year to purchase 2 AEDs. I believe it was just under $30,000. We had to purchase new ones just because the old ones were running out and King County EMS was requiring us to. We utilize the BLS core services, which is one of the buckets of money that come out of this levy, could be used for equipment. And if you don't use it in that year, it carries over from year to year. And so I had saved up from a couple years to get I had about 16, almost $20,000 in there. And I used that money for the AED to get the 2. And now we want to purchase a third one so that we would have one for both the engine and the aid car that go out first. And then we wanted to have one on the backup aid car. That money for the core services is, I don't remember exactly, but it's right around 7,000 or 8,000. And that's where I'm saying, depending on the budget this year, I might have to carry that over until next year to build up the funds, the carryover funds. We still have the 2. We have the 2 in service. They're purchased and we could move them from one rig to the other. So it's not a specific need that I need to have right now, but it will be something that we have to replace eventually. So we'll just kind of wait and see how the funds, pan out for the rest of this year to see if I need to wait till the very beginning of next year or if I'll be able to do it this year.
And these units are more robust than they used to be.
Yeah, they're a lot bigger. I had one last year. It's about this big. The ones we had before about this big, but it has to do with the requirements from,
Big.
yeah. The ones we had before are about the size of the one on the wall there.
Yeah.
And then the ones that they have now, King County EMS has some specific requirements about recording and some of the data features on it. They looked at all the different options and they basically said there's 2 models that you can buy. The one that we got, even though it was pretty big, it was the cheaper of the versions by a couple $1,000s, and the one that our partners are going to be using and the medics are going to be using. So the transfer of information and using the same kind of pads, it was a lot easier. It made sense to get the ones that we did. They're a little bit of an overkill for what we use. There's a lot of features that we don't use on them that are only going to be used probably by advanced life support by the paramedics. But again, King County EMS really didn't give us a whole lot of choice in which ones we get. So that's why we ended up with the ones that are suitcase size.
All right. Any other questions for the chief? All right. We need to move this on to consent agenda.
Yes.
There's no objection to it.
Since there's no budgetary implications.
Yeah. It's net. Okay.
It's a good story, but yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
of late, there's no room for good stories.
Well, I think there's room for a lot of good stories these days.
I'm not saying they're not happening. I'm just saying it's not time for us to talk about it.
Okay, all right, excellent. Well, we're very fortunate to, be kind of the groundbreaking Medic One program of not only the country, but the world is came out of University of Washington and Seattle area. So if you're planning on having a heart attack, this is a great place to have a heart attack, I guess, is the story to it all. All right. With that, we'll move on to the discussion.
Depends.
It depends.
Well, Seattle at one time had the highest incident of broken ribs.
But that's okay.
Because we taught everybody
Right.
CPR and they didn't to do it for whatever reason.
We always, when I used to teach the public classes, I used to tell people about that, and I'd say, I'd rather wake up in the hospital with sore ribs than the alternative.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it goes
Yeah.
with the
There-
territory.
There's a trade-off to
Yep.
it, definitely. All right. Update on school safety enforcement. That would be Interim Chief Racy.
Good evening, council members. I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I'm gonna kind of recap on the data that Acting Captain Moat presented to you, just to kind of compare, because I'm gonna give you some new numbers just for the last 3 weeks. Traffic stops and infractions issued. So if we look at traffic stops, the officers on Snoqualmie Parkway from January 1 to, at that point, April 6th, was 228 traffic stops. 42 on Meadowbrook, 5 on Southeast Mill Pond. There were 66 infractions issued on the Parkway, 10 on Meadowbrook, and 2 on Mill Pond. If we look at Snoqualmie Parkway in Swenson, there were 10 infractions, 1 accident. That's motor vehicle accident. And then on Meadowbrook, at Park, there was 1 infraction issued and 0 accidents. So I want to fast forward a little bit, because obviously we're still covering both cities during that time frame. And from April 1st to today, the officers have conducted 289 traffic stops with 64 infractions issued, and there were 7 collisions. On Snoqualmie Parkway at Swenson, we've issued 12 infractions. There were 0 accidents. On Meadowbrook, there were 0 infractions issued, 0 accidents. And if we go down on Meadowbrook Way, those were at the intersections of Meadowbrook and Park. So if we look at just the street, we had 9 infractions issued on Meadowbrook Way, 2 accidents and 32 traffic stops. On Snoqualmie Parkway, it was 40 infractions, 2 accidents, and 180 traffic stops conducted. So the officers are out there. I told the mayor earlier in a meeting that the officers have been watching even on ways where people are plugging them in saying the officers are stationed here and here throughout the city. And they're like, oh, well, now we have to adjust. So, the officers are even getting savvy to what the community's doing and just notification on where they're at. But we kind of predicted that this was going to happen, obviously, because we're being more proactive, being out there more. We're not kind of doing that reactive response with the having both cities. So there's a lot more focus, a lot more traffic stops. I mean, 289 traffic stops in 3 weeks versus 228 stops in 3 months. So that's a big difference on what the officers are able to do in our policing model right now.
So Chief, first off, thank you. With the stops, what are you seeing the trends? And just doing the math in my head, it's about 25% of the stops are ending up with a citation, meaning 75% is just simply a warning. But what are you seeing as the trend? Is it speed? Is it reckless driving? Is it what tends to be the theme of this?
I'll have to go back and do some research. Typically on the Parkway, we're seeing a lot of the speeding. Same thing on the Meadowbrook, but I can get you that information and get you some answers on that, just to kind of clarify and break that down.
And I think that would be kind of curious too, just with our discussion around cameras and, you know, where the enforcement actually happens and knowing that there's going to be a certain amount of discretion to that as well, just depending on the circumstance. Councilmember Cotton.
Chief, is there, so I know that we were talking about somebody being on light duty, being put on traffic, and is this part of that as far as an individual who's dedicated to doing the traffic stops at this point in time?
It is part of that. So he's working Tuesday through Friday typically. And he goes out and he's conducting a lot of some of those stops as well. We're also continuing that enforcement throughout the weekend. There were 21 citations sitting in the queue to be logged in the system from over the weekend, just as an example, because right now, we just changed our our ticket writing system, which y'all may remember earlier this year or end of last year, we did the agreement with WSP on. And what that did was it made a little bit more work until we get a section of it integrated with our CAD system, and we're in the process of that. So we're manually entering them. So I walked in this morning and there's 21 citations to be processed, and I'm like, that's good. So we're getting that officer this week. We're going to try to do a month's worth of data. I have to skip this week because he's in training. So after next week, we'll do that month of data of what that officer has done specifically. Just to kind of give a comparison of somebody who's dedicated to doing the traffic stops, because he's not out doing other things like that. So just kind of seeing where that falls and just kind of differentiating between the two. And then we'll compare them to these numbers.
Follow-up question.
Sure.
And then how long might he be available to do that?
I
When he
believe,
returns to full duty.
I haven't gotten the doctor's notice yet, but I've been told it's probably coming soon, that he's going to be returned to full duty probably in the next.
So
We'll see what happens. It's kind of a modified duty that he's on. So that's why he's limited on what he can and can't do. But it's coming around the corner.
Okay. It's nice to utilize him while we have him.
All right. Any other questions? Councilmember Holloway?
Well,
You've got-
seems-
No, I just want to make sure that it's fair, that everybody gets their opportunity.
No, well, shutting me up is the issue, not getting to talk. But I guess my following question though is, him being on light duty was an opportunity. That necessarily mean the focus on code enforcement decreases though, when he
No.
comes off light duty? Okay,
No, I just
didn't-
wanted to see what his numbers are gonna be versus like just alone with that only being what he's focused on. The officers are still gonna continue. We're still gonna see these
Okay,
numbers.
I just didn't want to leave that, I didn't want to leave that impression out there that because we have an officer coming off light duty, we're gonna unfocus on these areas, and that's just not the case. It may trim down a little bit because he'll have other responsibilities, but the officers can still focus on traffic enforcement in these areas.
Correct. And when he's still on duty, he still likes going out. And he's one of the more proactive officers, which is why we took this opportunity, because he was kind of going stir crazy sitting in the office doing paperwork. So it gave us an opportunity because, cops can only sit behind a desk for so long.
If
You
it
might see a little decrease, but it may go up. I don't know. It just depends on, he may still produce the same thing he's doing now. But everything we projected was we were going to start seeing a lot more activity in the city, with the officers enforcing the laws on the books and things like that and addressing the issues because they weren't responding to calls on just being reactive versus being proactive.
Okay, Councilmember Cotton and then Mayor Mayhew,
Oh,
please.
my question, and since we brought up the topic of speeding, is I did see, and I didn't think we had any speed studies going on right now, but that there was the speed monitoring, down on here on 202 and Northern. Did you notice that, like a week or two ago?
I did see it a few weeks ago.
And
I don't know if that's the state doing
if
it.
that's washed
or-
on, yeah.
I don't,
It's not us.
It's not us.
It's not us.
Majority answer is
I-
not us.
If it was us, y'all would have known ahead of time that we were gonna be doing another speed study.
That's what I figured, but it's unfortunate that they, I mean, it's great that they were doing it, but they did it the week that they were doing the one lane over there. So everybody was stopped and waiting when they're going over the bumps. So there would be no speeding on that. So.
One would hope.
And it may not be a speed thing, it
May
may
not
be a
be a speed-
volume thing
It
that
may
they're
be a
looking at.
volume thing associated
So-
with that.
I don't, I don't know who did it, and I don't know if it was, what the target was.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I just thought that was funny.
Thank you. I was wondering the same thing. So, Mayor Mayhew.
Yeah, so I just thought, Chief, maybe you could share with the committee, the, as they go sort of a long time, let me try that again. They will focus on different enforcement areas. They'll have different priorities, and they sort of do these, I don't know, a few weeks at a time. Maybe the chief could kind of go into this. Obviously, they don't tell folks where their their enforcement focus shifts, but they do move their focus around. So there's a whole number of things that they hope to get to. So when they maybe shift focus off one thing, by the way, it doesn't mean it goes down to zero. It just means that they sort of kind of shift their focus without going into specifics necessarily, Chief, but maybe you could kind of share a bit about your philosophy and how you do that.
Sir, so as you're aware, like at the end of, or beginning of fall, beginning of the school year, we had a lot of complaints up on the ridge around Douglas and Ridge with speeders in the school zones up there. We've had some issues down here on 202 downtown. So we will move our officers around, we'll move the speed trailer around, and just kind of get more inclusive information, also show that we're being present in the area. Right now, we are putting a focus on the school zones, but we're almost at the end of the school year as well. So there's a lot of focus on just the overall safety in those areas. I do plan on having some moving parts in there. We might focus around downtown again, just because of the, higher traffic volumes that we're going to see as the weather gets nicer and things like that. And we don't want somebody to get hit down there, because we do get a lot of speed concerns in that area. And we have that flexibility now where I've got, 3 to 5 officers on during the day with, school resource officer, the captain or whatever, where we're moving around and just can have that flexibility while still having officers available for calls. Like the mayor said, I'm not going to go out and say where we're going to move people around, because then that just kind of gives that. I mean, obviously we can just look on Waze and find that as they post it, but I'll try to have a little bit of an element of surprise. And, last year we had a lot of focus on Fairway and up on Jacobia area, just because of some of the concerns that we were having. And then we might do a focus on other aspects, like again, the weather's getting nicer, so we're going to be looking at parks and, making sure, activities are there, aren't getting out of hand or anything like that. And whether it's e-motorcycles or whatever. So we do move a lot of things around, and we have a lot of tools at our disposal for that.
All right. Excellent. Anything else?
Well, there was,
Yes.
at least last committee, there was also some of that focus, at least on Parkway, also included looking at uncovered loads and compression brakes.
That's
the next
next.
topic.
That's the next
Next one,
topic.
never
But
mind.
thank you for almost queuing that up. I've got one other comment as I went to Safeway last night and watching a 12-year-old on what was either a class 3 bike. It's like right in front of the police department. I think, the one emphasis, while you're out doing your job in the city, it always amazes me if we can revisit just the public education piece for parents, especially as the weather gets nicer and these kids are have extra time on their hands. I'm glad they're out there. They should be using pedals, not motorized vehicles, especially at age 12. But if we can kind of put that top of mind awareness, which I'm sure it is.
So we actually had a conversation about that earlier today about just because it was spring break. We actually had fewer calls last week than what we did last year during spring break. So I believe that the ordinance is taking hold, and we had a few that did run from us. We did see some issues, but we are looking at doing more education with the city's communication director and with our PIO, and just kind of putting that out there.
Yeah.
So it's
Good.
definitely there.
Yeah. And it's more of an education, I think, for parents than kids aren't going to listen to us. That's the reality. They might, if you wear a, police uniform, they might. But
Sometimes.
anyway.
As a parent, or, I mean, how was that? Let's not get into the conversation, but all right.
That's all right. Well, thank you for all your work. Moving along then in our discussion tonight, and that's the update on the RCW concerning covered loads. Back to you, Chief.
So again, I wasn't here last week. So I got caught up by Captain Moat, and last week we put together a municipal code ordinance for it's currently sitting with the city attorney to review, which then we'll bring to y'all to just take a look at, see if it's something y'all are interested in, because when I got briefed, he's like, it's something that was talked about. So we figured we'd put something together. We also sent it to the prosecutor, make sure they're on board, because obviously anything that we do would have to go through them. And so in my conversation with Attorney Burke earlier today, Mr. Thrall's out on vacation this week. So when he gets back, that's one of his topics to review, and hopefully I can get you something through an agenda bill just to review as an ordinance, if y'all decide to go that way. What we're looking at is just cover your loads in the city of Snoqualmie, basically. A little bit of definitions, kind of like any other ordinance I've pushed through, where we're adding a definition so that it's understood. It's very clear and laid out of what everything is, from the definition to the offense to what we're going to do as a city, and then penalties and things like that. So all of that will go through y'all. The officers are still out there doing their enforcement. We're still making sure that loads are covered if they are above that 6-inch freeboard threshold that the state, or that the RCW allows. Unfortunately, through a lot of conversations, I'm sure this was passed on to y'all, is that even if that mound is above the freeboard, it's what's counted at the freeboard. So we're going to have to make some adjustments. We're doing a little bit more research just to have some more answers for y'all in it. Just what other cities might have done, things like that. But I am looking at putting an ordinance forward to y'all for y'all to decide if that's the way y'all want to go.
Discussion, council members?
Well, understood the RCW limitations, but as we're doing our own ordinance, couldn't we say if any part of the load is above the top of, it needs to be covered? Period.
That's what we're looking at doing.
Okay.
So there's the RCW piece in there with the 6 inches below the top of the freeboard.
The perimeter.
At the perimeter, we're looking at just doing a complete cover. So once
All right.
everything, once we run it through legal and the prosecutor's office, I will have that to y'all. I'm hoping it doesn't take long, and I can get it on one of the next committee meeting agendas.
Great. Cool. Thank you.
Very well. Any other questions, comments on it? Councilmember Cotton, are you good?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you,
With
sir.
that, we come down to the end of the agenda for tonight, and items for future discussion. Councilmember Cotton.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up a topic that maybe in the future we could have discussion on Snoqualmie's public safety agencies updating current strategic plans regarding evacuation criteria versus shelter-in-place criteria for specific neighborhoods, schools, hospitals, commercial sectors, et cetera, for both on the Ridge and downtown, when indicated for potential disasters such as our most recent flooding, urban wildland fires, various hazmat scenarios, and many other things too. And is this a project that's already being addressed since our latest flooding disaster? And or is there a potential future timeframe already set for the updates and reviews on strategic plans type of thing?
Okay, sounds like maybe that's a discussion between you, the mayor, and the fire chief.
Well, not just the fire chief, because
Fire chief.
police are involved but I didn't know if this was covered in our strategic plans that we have on file with the city as far as, or if there was plans to update since our flood disaster about kind of evacuation and from lessons learned and that type of thing.
Can we, back, so
Yeah, Councilmember Holloway.
what currently codifies criteria for evacuation?
The, the city does have an evacuation plan, it hasn't been exercised in quite a while, but there is a plan for going out and advising, residents when they need to leave, door knocking, leaving hangers on doors, things like that. We also have, there's a King County, and actually it's a nationally recognized, the Ready, Set, Go, that you've seen phase 1, 2, or 3. They use a lot of times in wildfires, but that's also what we'd use for flooding. We talked about it in the town hall. It's, I think where we need to do a better job is making sure the public knows about it. And that's on the to-do list for this year as one of the things that came out of the most recent flooding. And the town hall is to relook at that and do a better job with the PR of that. Not PR, but getting the word out as to what that Ready, Set, Go is and the different phases. But that's kind of where we're at now, right where we are at right now.
Okay, I just wanted to, what we were talking about.
We do have, like I said, we do have some things in place, but it's probably not as published as it needs to be. And that's one of the things we're going to be working on this year.
Would it be meaningful to this committee to have maybe just a readiness presentation, a 15-minute presentation, so that we're all aware of, what's already in place? Because it's one of those things that when nature calls, then you break out the book. But it's good for us to understand what our position is and how ready are we for readiness, if that makes sense. No, I
Well,
make this
you
up.
might, it kind of an opportunity, you're talking
Right.
public outreach and
Mhm.
awareness of this. Start here.
Yeah.
When you're ready, come by and talk.
Yeah.
What are those things which would define when we do and how we do evacuations? And help educate us.
Mayor Mayhew.
Yeah, so hopefully I'm trying to take two takeaways from this. One is come back and give you a briefing on what we have in place right now, which absolutely Chief Bailey can do. I've asked the same question. He gave me the same answer that he just gave you. That's encouraging.
He's consistent.
But as you heard, there's a plan, but it hasn't been exercised for a while, and that's actually one of the things that's coming out of the analysis coming out of the flood event. That's one of the things on the list that has been tagged to be re-looked at and updated this year. So that's something that's going to be happening over the coming months. It's on the to-do list, and you're going to be getting a report out. I think we gave you an update on that at the last council meeting of where we were at kind of in that process. You're going to be getting a report out on that debrief and kind of what are the action steps we've taken and that we're now working on. So what he can absolutely do is tell you what we have, give you a briefing on what we have. And then what we're going to do is something that's on the work list and it'll be coming in the coming months, but that is something that's already on the list. And, you know, it's not just for flood events, it's for all kinds of events. And we're thinking about all of those. So that's, the chief is working on it already, along with a number of other things that came out of that whole debrief process.
Would it be reasonable, just because we kind of keep this working document of future topics, to have it like slotted for some time in the third quarter so that it gives you time to put things together?
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest is we are kind of heavily working on some budget stuff right now to get prepared for that. But I can look on my calendar. We have a planning document that we keep, the city staff keeps for future committee meetings, and I will look for a place to put on it in the near future to give that type of a presentation when we have some time and some opening. But like you said, third quarter maybe seems about right.
Yeah, there's not an immediacy to it happening in the next month, but
Let's hope.
let's hope.
If something, just to set your mind, if something did happen within the next month, I'm confident that we'd
work.
be able to use it and function with it. But yeah, for the, presentation, I'll look for something in the third quarter. I'll look for a date that works to put that together.
Okay.
Unless it comes sooner based on other timelines.
Let's hope not.
For sure by the third quarter though.
Thanks, Julie.
Okay, excellent. Anything else? Topics to come before us? With that, we have run out of our agenda. It is 5:36, and without objection, I will call for adjournment. Hearing no objection, we stand adjourned at 5:36. Thank you very much.